frequency voltage across the chest, and they measure the current, so they're measuring the resistance. Inhale, more air in the chest, air is a poor conductor, resistance goes up. Exhale, resistance goes down. So we can see the breathing. Now there's a problem with this, and that is that the heart also causes fluctuations in the impedance. Why? Blood is more conductive than air. More conductive than other tissues in the body. And with every beat of the heart, there's blood going into and out of the thorax, and there are associated changes in impedance, which I'll show you. Here is some of the signals that we see. There's an EKG. Here's a chest impedance, and inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And along with these signals, there's a heart rate, about 180 as usual. Here's the respiration rate, about 50, 1 breath per second, typical in the baby. And you also see these little bumps in this signal. And those are called the cardiac artifact. That is, that's the beating of the heart, changing the impedance across the chest. Well, suddenly, for no apparent reason, this baby stops breathing. We can't see anything in the signals that indicates that there was something wrong, but the baby stops breathing. And now all that appears in the chest impedance is that cardiac artifact. Well, the monitors look at that, they look at this, and they say everything's fine, the baby's breathing at 50 breaths per minute. And the monitor looks at this and says, everything's fine, the baby's breathing at 175 breaths per minute. Well, I can't breathe that fast. You can't breathe that fast. And babies can't breathe that fast. That is an artifact that the monitors don't know what to do. Well, how do we remove the cardiac artifact from the chest impedance signal? We developed a new algorithm. There's again a job for physicists, mathematicians, computer scientists, a problem of filtering and signal analysis, pattern recognition. I had a wonderful postdoc named Hoshik Lee who developed this method. Goal, filter the heart signal from the chest impedance. Now, you've seen spectrum analysis. You guys all know about Fourier transforms? Is that a yes? Some are no. Okay. You've all seen some amplifiers have this kind of dancing stuff, these dancing lights on the front. And what those are is spectrum analyzers. So at one end is high frequency sound, at another end is low frequency sound. And so there's standard mathematical algorithms that listen to a sound and pick out the frequencies. Well, one can also take any signal, like this one, and pick out the frequencies in it. And here's what we get when we see this. Here's a frequency of 3 per second, and that's the heartbeat. Here's a frequency around 1 per second, and that's the breathing. Well, there's two problems in filtering this. One is that it's a broad band. Well, we could deal with that. But the bigger problem is this. When the baby starts breathing, the heart slows down. And the heartbeat can come right down into the breathing band. And then how do we tell? How do we tell heartbeat from respiration? Well, we took an idea from Galileo. And wonderful story here, I'll go ahead and read it. In 1581, Galileo made his first discovery, which is characteristic of his observant eye. I love the way this guy writes. As the story goes, the student of 18 was one afternoon performing his devotions in the Cathedral of Pisa, and in full view of Maestro Possenti's beautiful bronze lamp, which hung and still hangs from the roof of the nave. In order to light it more easily, the attendant drew it back toward him and then let it swing back. Galileo at first observed this simple incident, as thousands of other worshippers had done before him, and have done since, i.e. in a casual way. But quickly his attention became riveted to the swinging lamp. The oscillations, which were at first considerable, became gradually less and less. But notwithstanding, he could see that they were all performed in the same time. as he was able to prove by timing them with his digital watch. What could he use? They didn't have pendulum clocks then. What did he use?
Heartbeat.
He used his heartbeat. The only watch he possessed. I will say, not a very precise watch, but it's what he had. So that in fact was the beginning of pendulum clocks. And we can use the heart as the clock. Here's what we do. Here's a chest impedance signal, and this is only cardiac artifact. All that is just heartbeats. You see that the heartbeats are a little more rapid here, slower there. Well, let's change the time scale. Let's change the time scale so that we'll compress it here and stretch it there so that these intervals are all equally spaced. Then, again, take the spectrum, and here we have the very sharp signal from the heart. That is cardiac artifact at one signal per heartbeat. There's an overtone at 2 cycles per heartbeat, and so on. That's what Fourier methods give. There's the breathing band, and there's slow change and other stuff. Whatever it is not breathing. So we can use that then, and we can cut out, just digitally cut out this signal and that signal, and then resample, send back to real time, convert back to real time, and get a filtered chest impedance. So here, this is the end of that same event that I showed you. You can see the heart slowing down, and there's the cardiac artifact. Here is the cardiac artifact removed. There's still some slow fluctuations. We cut those out also, and we get a filtered chest impedance. And then if this signal is silent, we know the baby's not breathing. Well, there's where the hard work comes in. How silent is silent? And then we have to look at hundreds of signals and consult with clinicians and ask, is this baby breathing or not? And get a probability of apnea. It's very confusing often to try to put in a sharp threshold. So instead we put in a smooth threshold. We look at the residual fluctuations, and if the residual fluctuations are large, the baby is breathing. If the residual fluctuations are small, the baby is not breathing. The baby is having an apnea. Okay, so from chest impedance, remove the cardiac artifact, remove the slow variations, adjust the scale, compute the standard deviation on 2-second intervals, and convert that to a probability of apnea. And we report them as ABDN events, apnea with bradycardia, that means slow heart, desaturation means oxygen low, and lasting at least n seconds. So, I won't tell you about validating the algorithm, it took a long time, but of events detected by the new algorithm, over 90%, it's over 90% correct. That's very good in this field because that, I didn't really show you how much that chest impedance signal is filled with other artifacts, motional artifacts. And so we're doing much better than the systems had previously. Here's the same example. In fact, baby was breathing, stopped, big cardiac artifact, confused the monitor, but we see that that was a long apnea. And by the way, that apnea lasted almost 90 seconds, and the monitor never saw it. Here's what the monitor is supposed to see. It's supposed to have a respiration rate around 60 or 80, something like that, 1 per second. And when the baby stops breathing, it looks at the time since the last breath. Time gets longer and longer. This is reporting the frequency, so it's 1 over that time. And then when that time gets too long, then it sets off an alarm and says, baby is not breathing. Here's another example of periodic breathing. Baby's breathing regularly, takes one deep breath, one big deep breath, and then stops breathing. Hard to see in here because of that big cardiac artifact, but very plain here. Stop, apnea, breathing, apnea, breathing, apnea, breathing. Very regular rhythm. Well, okay, so we're seeing periodic decelerations associated with the periodic apneas. Oh, I didn't show you that. Along with these apneas, the heart rate slows down, and we're seeing periodic decelerations of the heart. Well, we think that those periodic heart rate decelerations are usually caused by these periodic apneas. The cycle time is about 15 seconds. They're clearly associated. I don't know that it's associated 100% of the time yet, but this explains at least many of the observed periodic decelerations. New question, what causes periodic apneas? Well, are you guys able to stay till midnight tonight? I'd love to tell you more about this because this is where we're getting into real physics. The respiratory control system goes into oscillation. What happens is we have, it's a feedback loop with a time delay. And what happens is we have detectors for the level of oxygen in the blood. They're in the carotid arteries in the neck. They're also in the aorta. And they send a signal to the brain. And the brain processes, or the brain stem, I should say, stem processes that signal and sends another signal back to the diaphragm, says, breathe harder, or don't breathe so fast. Well, there's a time delay associated with that. Anytime you have a feedback loop with a time delay, that feedback loop can go into oscillation. You know this because sometimes you've gone into a shower in the morning and you turn on the water and it's really cold. And then you turn it over to hot. And after a while it comes out really hot. And then you turn it back to cold again. And if you don't do it slowly with small adjustments, you can go into unstable oscillation that way. So what the system needs, the system will respond smoothly if the changes are slow and have small adjustments. But if the changes are abrupt, or if the time delay is too long, or the system responds too strongly, then it will go into oscillation. And sorry, I don't have time to tell you all this. What are the things that? Why are we interested in periodic apneas? By the way, this is interesting. In the past, up till now, everybody has just ignored periodic apneas. They just think, well, that's what babies do. They do that a lot. And we found that there were two recent deaths, a SIDS death and a suspected sepsis death. Baby was in the hospital for, I don't know, a few weeks, seemed to be healthy, was sent home. And about, I think it was 3 weeks later, suddenly the baby died. Well, on retrospective analysis, it was found that these babies had a great deal of time in those periodic apneas. Great deal of time. One of them, the SIDS baby, was spending half its time in the NICU, was spent in periodic breathing. And that's 5% is much more typical for babies. So we're collecting statistics on periodic apneas, and we think that, well, the hypothesis is that excessive time in periodic apneas is a warning that something is wrong. What is wrong, we don't know, but anyway, that's continuing research. So lots of continuing studies. What fraction, well, never mind those. What needs to be done? One of the most important things is to develop a good graphical user interface and an indexing system for all this data. 10 terabytes of data, you want to look at a little bit of it at a time. We need a system that efficiently retrieves the data that we want and presents it in an effective way. Eventually, we hope to convert to a real-time monitor. The apnea monitor that we have works retrospectively. And we hope that we can convert it to a real-time monitor that can then be implemented in the NICU. Anyways, an add-on system that provides a new way of analyzing data that had previously been discarded. Okay, here we are. There's where we want to be. And the vision for the future is, what are we doing? We're doing new analysis of routinely generated data that has just been discarded in the past. It wasn't possible to save all that data in the past. The current generation of monitors is based on old technology, but we have disruptive advances today. Memory is down to 4 cents a gigabyte. I just bought a 3 terabyte drive for $110 or something like that. That's about 4 cents a gigabyte. Speed is in gigahertz of computers. Data input is only kilohertz per patient. So it means that the analysis that was previously done with hardware can now be done with software. Software is cheap, it's easy to develop, it's flexible and adaptable, can be tested and optimized against databases, and can give us just a new way of dealing with this information. Conclusions. Well, reduced heart rate variability and decelerations are correlated with illness. They can be used as a new non-invasive monitor. Periodic decelerations are caused by periodic apneas. We have a state-of-the-art apnea detector, and we're learning all sorts of new things about apneas from it. Main message, when we quants work together with physicians, and we overcome the knowledge barriers and the communication barriers between us, which are very great, I will say. But then, when we do that, important and unexpected advances in healthcare can be made. Thanks very much. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Thank you.